Recording in progress.
Good morning. I'm TARTA CEO Laura Kaprowski, and I'm pleased to welcome you as we open up and kick off Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We'd like to thank you for joining us today, and thank you as well for understanding our need to transition this press conference to a virtual event. As this pandemic continues to impact the people, residents, businesses of Northwest Ohio, TARTA remains committed to protecting the health and safety of all of those who depend on public transportation and our community as a whole. Caring about our community also means being able to recognize and react when a member of that community is in trouble. And that is what we are here to discuss today. TARTA is proud to partner with the University of Toledo's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute to put into action a federal transit administration grant that we were awarded to address the widespread problem of human trafficking. Through a number of programs this month, we hope to raise awareness and highlight the success stories of survivors. We have a full list of speakers and programs who are doing amazing work in this area. This includes U.S. Congresswoman Marcy Captor, Erica Krause, representing U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown's office, Chelsea Galterman, Senior Aide to Ohio State Senator Theresa Fetter, Dr. Celia Williamson, Executive Director of the University of Toledo's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute, and Amy Legess, Co-Chair of the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition. There will be time for questions at the end of today's presentation, so feel free to use your Zoom's Q&A feature to pose any questions to our panelists. And now it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, U.S. Representative Marcy Captor. Congresswoman Captor was first elected to her post in 1982 and is the longest-serving woman in congressional history. She was instrumental in helping TARTA and University of Toledo secure this grant funding that we're jointly using to fight human trafficking, and we received that in 2020. Through this and other initiatives, Congresswoman Captor continues to demonstrate her commitment to leading and fighting against trafficking and labor exploitation wherever they are found. Again, it is my honor to introduce and turn over now to Representative Captor.
Thank you so very much, Laura. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, fine. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great work you do and to all of our very impressive partners in this effort this morning. Thank you for being a part of this Zoom. I'm very proud of all of you. It's a real privilege to join with you on the critical issue of Human Trafficking Prevention Month. You are a remarkable group of people engaged in the important work every single day to prevent human trafficking. You support survivors on the path to recovery. Stopping the horror of human trafficking here at home and across our nation requires a society-wide response with active input and collaboration from law enforcement, local officials, medical professionals, faith communities, businesses, nonprofits, and the public at large. That's easy to say and hard to do. We all have a role to play. And today's Zoom can help our own awareness of what is taking place around us, as well as to inform others how to notify the authorities if we hear or see warning signs. We have here with us the real eyes and ears of our region. The Toledo Area Transit Authority, thank you, Laura, whose 175 operators serve every corner of our region every single day, morning, noon, and night. We also have with us the University of Toledo's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute. We're very proud of you and what it's taken to build that. and the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition. Congratulations to you. Together, they deliver the vital education and care that protects and restores communities just like ours. This past November, I met with a 22-year-old survivor of human trafficking who shared her story, as well as the journey she embarked upon to seek justice. Chelsea knows who she is, and that helps motivate us to fight harder for others just like her. In the face of incredible pain, she has gone on to live her truth and demonstrate extraordinary courage. That is why I'm so pleased to be able to recognize and commend all of you for your tireless mission to eradicate human trafficking. In Congress, it's been my immense privilege to fight for the federal tools that bolster the on-the-ground efforts to bring light to darkness and uplift those who have been so traumatized. One of these critical roles was a nearly $475,000 grant in 2020 from the Federal Transit Administration to train TARTA operators on how to spot those seeking to do harm and recognizing those in need of help. We also recently announced a nearly $500,000 grant, $600,000 actually, from the U.S. Department of Justice for advocating opportunity in Toledo, which helps survivors attain the safe and supportive housing they need to thrive. I hope that we can have a women's build, a home builders, maybe mom builders or women builders effort working in conjunction with the Habitat for Humanity, because, you know, all of us as women were robbed of the ability to learn those carpentry skills and foundational skills in the building trades when we were in school. It just wasn't taught that way. And I have learned since women can learn how to do that. It would be really a very restorative effort if we could think along those lines moving forward, especially with bills like the infrastructure bill that has just passed and others to come in the housing arena. So our work is ongoing, and we must all do our part. I'll continue my work in Congress to work with you to ensure our region has the resources and funding we need to protect the most preyed upon among us. Each one of us has a right to life in this country and the dignity of living in a country that rules by law, not by the fist. Thank you so very, very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Captor. Your remarks and your work is so moving. And as you shared, I mean, these are real lives and real stories that exist. And the partnerships that exist at the local, state, and federal level, I think, are unique and really making a difference here in Northwest Ohio. And another one of those partners of ours at the federal level is U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown. Although he is not able to join us today, Erica Kraus, who works in his Northwest Ohio office, is here. The senator has been an author of the Bipartisan Protect Act, which would expand current law to hold both traffickers and facilitators responsible for furthering an individual's drug addiction for the purpose of forced labor and sex trafficking. So thank you for joining us, Erica, and I know you have a message from the senator to share with us.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, I'll be reading a letter this morning from Senator Brown. Dear friends, first, thank you to TARTA, the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition, the Focus on Runaways Project, and the University of Toledo for working together on this important initiative. As Toledo knows all too well, human trafficking is real, and it's happening in our own backyards, to children, teens, and adults alike. We've seen how traffickers often prey on children in foster care and young people experiencing homelessness, and the devastating effects that has on people and communities in Ohio and across the country. We've also seen how COVID-19 has accelerated many of the issues that existed before the pandemic, including human trafficking. We have a responsibility to do all we can to stop such modern-day slavery and ensure that the perpetrators of this despicable crime are brought to justice. We must also do more to uplift survivors' voices and ensure that they have access to services and resources they need to rebuild their lives with dignity. We know that victims of trafficking are often hiding in plain sight. That's why this collaboration between TARTA and the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition is so important. Bringing resources and education directly to TARTA writers and the wider community can make a difference in the lives of trafficking victims. In Congress, we've continued to make progress fighting human trafficking by building on the work being done across Ohio. I'm working on this issue through my role as the chairman of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. In 2021, my anti-money laundering bill was signed into law. That will help us crack down on how criminals and human traffickers finance their crimes. Money laundering is never a victimless crime, and in Ohio, we've seen how money launderers fuel human trafficking. I will continue to uplift the voices of all the Ohioans who are leading the country in these important efforts. Thank you again for fighting for justice for victims and survivors of trafficking every day. Sincerely, U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown.
Thank you, Erica. And we appreciate the hard work and leadership displayed by Senator Brown and everyone in his office on an issue that impacts the most vulnerable members of our community. So we're excited. I mean, this is a powerhouse of women working on such an important issue. And our next guest is Chelsea Golterman. She is the senior aide to State Senator Theresa Fetter. Senator Fetter has just made so many remarkable inroads and efforts to address and start anti-trafficking laws and protections for survivors of trafficking that simply wouldn't exist otherwise. She has more than 2 decades serving people from Northwest Ohio in our General Assembly in Columbus. And she has really put and charted the path forward for survivors to be a top priority at the State House. She's also been a founding member of the Ohio Attorney General's Human Trafficking Initiative and consults with the governor's Human Trafficking Task Force. She has also led the creation and success of numerous anti-trafficking efforts statewide, including the Focus on Runaways project here in Lucas County. So please join me in welcoming Chelsea, and we look forward to your remarks on behalf of Senator Theresa Fetter.
Thank you for the introduction, Laura. Senator Fetter is sorry she could not be here herself, but wrote the following message for me to read on her behalf. I am so proud to be part of today's announcement and to kick off Human Trafficking Awareness Month with so many change makers. After 16 years of working to fight human trafficking, society has finally evolved in our thinking around this issue. Throughout our lives, we have heard that prostitution is the oldest profession in the world. No, it is the oldest oppression in the world. And I strongly believe it is the human rights issue of our lifetime. When I started working to fight trafficking, no one in the legislature knew what trafficking was. I will never forget the FBI bust, Operation Precious Cargo, in 2005, which showed me that this horrendous crime was taking place in my own backyard. The Precious Cargo investigation identified numerous pimps, primarily from Toledo, who were running a nationwide prostitution ring out of the Gables truck stop in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere. The investigation ultimately resulted in the conviction of 15 pimps and 2 corrupt state troopers, but most importantly, it led to the rescue of over 150 victims, of whom 45 were identified as having been exploited while underage. The youngest was 12. 78 of those victims were from Toledo. I decided then that I must do something in Ohio's law to put an end to it. Not on my watch would I let this continue, especially not to our children. Besides, I thought this is a nonpartisan issue. Who could possibly be against stopping human trafficking? Through networking and collaborating with grassroots organizations and organizations like those on this call, we're able to make some progress in 2010 by passing the End Demand Act. Now, all these years later, I am awe-inspired at the progress that has been made in Ohio and across the country. We now hold traffickers accountable, protect all minor victims of trafficking, and have coalitions fighting against trafficking in every corner of the state. Without all of you, we would not have been able to make such substantial progress. We've grown together through this experience, and I feel as though we are now family. But we still have a lot of work to do to spread awareness on what this crime really looks like and continue to let victims know there is a way out. People do care, and there are resources available for you. When working to rescue victims, we must focus on harm reduction by creating a path to support services without putting them through a punitive criminal justice system. It's time to reimagine our definition of justice for survivors of human trafficking. And I have a bill introduced right now that would help survivors expunge their records related to their victimization. If you want to learn more about what is next in Ohio's fight to end human trafficking in all forms, save the following date. My partners and I will be holding the 12th Annual Human Trafficking Awareness Summit on Friday, March 4th. At the summit, you'll be able to hear perspectives of parents of survivors, advocates, law enforcement, and most importantly, survivors themselves, because they are the ones leading this fight. Thank you all for joining us in this fight today. And thank you, TARTA, and everyone on this Zoom who is taking the next step to spread awareness in our community. I'm proud to be part of today's announcement. Theresa.
Thank you, Chelsea. And thanks to Senator Fetter for her continued leadership. We're so fortunate to have such a strong voice for trafficking survivors representing us at our state capitol. So next, I am thrilled to introduce a key partner, someone I really do feel lucky to work with every day on this issue. Is Dr. Celia Williamson at the University of Toledo's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute. I mean, Dr. Williamson is globally recognized expert on human trafficking. She's delivered over 200 presentations in a career dedicated to prevention and helping survivors thrive. The impact of trafficking on vulnerable communities has been a particular focus for Dr. Williamson, who founded the International Trafficking and Social Justice Conference that takes place right here in Toledo, Ohio. She's also the founder of the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition and Ohio's first anti-trafficking program. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Williamson.
Thank you, Laura. It's mutual. I'm excited to have worked with TARTA for several years. And my internet connection is unstable. So Amy, jump in and let me know if I froze. But there are about 40 million slaves in the world today, according to the Global Slavery Index. About 1,000 of those are in Ohio, young people. Any given time during the year, we see about 70 victims a year in Lucas County. According to the Lucas Healthy Community Health Assessment, there are hundreds of kids in our own Toledo area that have traded sex to meet their basic needs. I just want to talk about one particular experience with a girl named Peaches that was trafficked in our community at age 14, met a trafficker, and was sold, beaten, battered, abused. Her mom ended up going to prison for something that she did. Her dad was the primary caretaker. He was accused of abusing her or someone in the family. She then got involved in child welfare and the foster care system. She ran away time and time again. And the police got involved, juvenile court got involved. By the time she was 19 years old, she was arrested for trafficking another kid who was 14 years old, and she spent 9 years in prison. Now, there are several risk factors that I just talked about really quickly, and you need to know and learn those risk factors. And Amy's going to tell you how to get involved in the fight against human trafficking and how to learn more. There are a lot of risk factors. She ran away, risk factor. She was involved in child protection, risk factor. She was involved in being around negative influences, another risk factor. And she had a lot of systems involved. She had the child welfare system involved. They missed it. She had the police involved. They missed it. She had juvenile court involved. Missed it. Schools involved. She had countless social workers involved. Everybody missed it. Not only the formal systems, but she had the informal systems around her, her family, her neighborhood that missed it, her community that missed it. So the moral of the story is that the outcome of her life, the trajectory of her life changed because She was given 9 years in prison. Why? Because everybody knew what to do when she became a criminal. The police knew what to do when she became a criminal. The juvenile court system knew what to do. Child protection knew what to do. And the prison system knew what to do. And so the entire trajectory of her life is now changed. So anyone could have seen the signs then. No one took the time to respond to the risk factors. Somebody missed her victimization. Everyone understood her criminal behavior. No one believed that they were to blame except her. We all went to work the next day to fight to save our children. That is the message. We have to be the eyes and the ears for our children and for other people's children. We're going to go old school. We're going to do a village type of thing where we care about not only our children, but other people's children as well. And so that's the message. We're not going to stigmatize kids and call them fast. And we're going to look beyond that and see that they're children. So who is manipulating them? Who is coercing them into involving themselves in this activity? Or who is forcing and manipulating them to get involved in these activities? So we are happy to be partnering with, of course, our state legislators, our federal legislators. Let me tell you, they answer the phone and they're responsive. And we're happy to be working with TARTA. We worked with them for several years. You all people don't know in the community all the things that TARTA really does behind the scenes to help the community. So that's all I want to say. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and she's going to tell you more about what's going on in the community, how you can get involved.
Amy, I will just do a brief introduction because, oh my gosh, I don't want to take too much time. Finally, but your work in this area, Amy LaJess, is just really outstanding, making such a difference. She is co-chair of the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition. Her dedication to the fight against human trafficking led to her being recognized with the Sexual Assault Visionary and Community Cares Award in 2020. Amy is the board president of the Ohio Alliance to End Sexual Violence and is the focus on Runaways Project Coordinator and the PATH Project Coordinator with UT's Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute. So thank you for joining us today, and the power combination of Dr. Williamson and you letting us TARTA come into that, be a part of that village. Just thank you. We have learned so much from you.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Good morning, everyone. I'm just happy to be here with you today and representing the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition and the Focus and Runaways Project. Celia, I hope, inspired you with her story of one youth who there were signs, there were red flags, but we didn't catch it. Well, we're trying to improve on catching those red flags, those signals. And how we're doing that is we are offering trainings. We are offering monthly meetings. And we also, as the coalition, can take your donations. So let me walk through those with you. If you're saying, I want to join this fight, what can I do to make a difference? You can come to our monthly Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition meetings. We meet the third Wednesday of every month from 9:15 to 11. And of course, these meetings are virtual because of COVID. And the Kent Branch Library cannot accommodate us. There are so many of us, which is a great thing to report, right? So one thing, if you want to get in this fight, come to our monthly meetings. You can find out more information on our website, which is simply the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition. All right, the second thing you can do is educate yourself. Know what to look for, not only the signs and the red flags for sex trafficking, but let's not forget about labor trafficking. There are other types of trafficking. So if you need to learn more about what is trafficking, what kinds are there, etc., please join us. We have an opportunity January the 11th. It is from 10 to noon. It is virtual. we will be discussing both the social media during COVID and how it has affected the human trafficking fight, as well as the mental health of human trafficking survivors and how it's changed during COVID-19. And we always do a little bit of human trafficking 101 just to make sure we're all on the same page. So again, join us for a training January the 11th, 10 a.m. to noon. And again, check out our website or Eventbrite to register. The last way, if you say, Amy, I can make a training, but I can't make the meetings. Those are during my work hours. How else can I help? Well, let me tell you, we have an emergency fund for survivors. It was just started 6 months ago, and we have already helped survivors in the amount of $5,000 with needs that cannot be met through other funding sources. We have helped survivors pay for their security deposits for their apartments. We have helped them fix their cars. We have helped them pay for utility bills, et cetera, et cetera. So please, if you're not able to do anything else during January, Human Trafficking Awareness Month, please go to our website. We have a donate button, and trust me, we will put your money to good use. So please, if you need more information, visit the website, and we will be glad to let you know how you can assist. I do want to end, as I could talk forever, as many of you know on the call. I want to thank TARTA as a dedicated partner for several years. I want to thank everyone on this call for all the work that they do to support our local programming, which is so important. And I also want to thank all of the coalition members for all the work that they do. We are excited for what 2022 holds for Lucas County and what we can do to fight human trafficking. And thank you for being here with us today.
Amy, thank you. You have given us so many tangible, real tools and action steps that we can all take. And, you know, I am sure that if you've been here with us this morning, you can see that this has been a long, hard, dedicated fight by so many amazing people and organizations from and our elected leaders of Congresswoman Captor and State Senator Theresa Fetter. And TARTA's just really glad to be here today to help shine that spotlight and be in a support role. And so impressed of everything that's occurring. So I would just add a couple other ways that the community can also be engaged this month of human trafficking awareness. And that is, there will be a informational webinar on January 26th from noon to 1 p.m. that'll be hosted by Dr. Williamson. And as you heard her remarks already, I am sure that this webinar is going to be powerful and really help expand your awareness and what you can do to help address this critical issue. Information available on TARTA's website, social media. Also, we are working with Dr. Williamson and Amy to have a training course for all of our TARTA drivers. We've done this over the years. We are kicking it off again, as well as our other TARTA team members. Unfortunately, we do get calls and from our customers who feel that human trafficking, or they feel that they are seeing some actions that allude to that. So we want to make sure that our team members, our TARTA team members, can be there to help if needed, be eyes and ears. That's so important. And then just generally raising awareness throughout this month. Finally, later this year, we're really excited with that Fta Grant that Congresswoman Captor was so helpful in us receiving. We will be installing digital information screens in all of our vehicles. That funding provided $200,000, and we're matching it with some ODOT funding so that we can have digital information screens in all of our vehicles that can provide information and tips about human trafficking and how to be aware of that. In addition, it will provide us the opportunity to provide other communication messages as well as about TARTA service. But being right there in the vehicle, and again, unfortunately, that is when we sometimes get calls from our customers that they feel something is occurring in the way of human trafficking. So at this point, we will open it up to question and answer from our attendees. And I do know that we already have one question, and this is from Mike Fairchild with NBC 24. He is asking, why is TARTA getting involved in this issue, and why is this issue important to TARTA? So as Dr. Williamson has shared, TARTA has been involved in this issue for a number of years. It really goes to the fact that what TARTA does, it is about being involved in the community. Yes, we move people from point A to point B, but it really is about how we support the community. And we know that there are many places that human trafficking, that potential victims can be approached. We want to make sure that when it's on TARTA's system at our downtown transit hub, that we're fully aware and that it can be a safe place as well, not just raising awareness, but a safe place the potential victims can turn to. And we will see if we have any other questions. I know.
Laura, I'd love to make a comment while we're waiting for other questions to come in.
Oh, please do.
If it's possible.
Thank
okay,
you,
I'm just so proud of Senator Fetter and of this marvelous, marvelous coalition of caring Americans that are working on this challenge. I wanted to just give an insight. Again, this is kind of down the road, but it's possible now. If we think about so many of these individuals come from lean economic circumstances. And the question would be, how do we help people have a more stable life? I think down the road, there should be a subcommittee, and I really can't tell Amy what to do, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. If you think about what Pastor Clark is doing at his church on United Church of Christ on Monroe Street, we're moving into tiny homes. We are going to be, he has a goal of 24 tiny homes in this community. Since Toledo has been such a center of the unfortunate trafficking of young Americans, maybe we should be the place that does something remarkable. And years ago, I tried to found a homemakers program, literally building housing before the technology for tiny homes existed. And the University of Toledo, Dr. Williamson, as you know, has a construction specialty. And we have a very active building trades union constellation here in this part of the United States, with many women in the trades. And I think that looking down the road, secure shelter is so important. If we look at what the United Church of Christ has done in Detroit, Pastor Faith, a woman up there, building dozens of tiny homes, there is no reason that we cannot put together a coalition of women and a partnership between religious organizations, many of our unions, the foundation community, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development itself to involve some of the women, not all of them, but there's something, people can usually hold a paintbrush. They have to learn other skills, but to actually build homes. But tiny homes are remarkable because they're using the advantage of modern technology and the way you package the componentry. And so I would just, and we have a woman in charge of construction now at our local Habitat for Humanity, which exists in Maumee, Ohio. So I just kind of throw that out there. Maybe there could be a subcommittee, Amy, of what you have been so instrumental in forming, but that would look at the possibilities of secure shelter. I think there really is and you don't have to start big. You can start with 3 units or 5 units. The whole Mercy Hospital Bone Secure system, which has a huge foundation, is fairly close to where Pastor Clark is going to be building some of these initial tiny homes. But I just give you that insight because so many of these young people, as they are trafficked, come out of foster care or come out of some of our public support systems, and really there's no one there for them. There's no secure place. And I just give you that insight. I think that we could do something remarkable here. And since this effort, Senator Fetter's been so involved with championing this over decades now, And I know Chelsea has been a strong right arm there for everything that's going on. But I really do think that we need to have a sort of a golden road forward here, that there can be secure shelter. And I don't know, Amy, I'm sure you know that many of these victims have no secure shelter.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So I think that we have some assets here, but we have to help put them together because they've been created for some other purposes, but this has never been in their sort of main drive. This has not been, they haven't thought about it, right? So what a remarkable achievement that would be. If we could get some of these kit houses, if we could find foundations around the country to help us and involve some of the women in the trades, who could help us figure out how to do this and break it down into achievable goals. Everybody can carry 1 2x4. Even I can do that. And so, and handle a hammer and nail. So, it's just something to think about.
We've worked with Pastor Clark. I've worked with Pastor Clark. He's amazing. And we'll definitely reach out to him and see if there's a collaboration possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman, for that suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if you've ever been through these tiny homes, but you need to look at them. They're amazing. They're amazing.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you for that suggestion. That's a good potential collaboration.
We have a few questions now. The first one, Dr. Williamson, you mentioned a set of numbers regarding the impact of trafficking in the nation, state and local area. Do you have a sense of how COVID has impacted these numbers?
Absolutely. The impact has been tragic. Lots more trafficking happening and in different ways. People that can no longer pay their rent. We've had some cases where landlords have tried to take advantage and exploit people that aren't able to pay their rent. Situations like that where we're taking our eyes and ears off of things because we're so focused on being healthy and safe that where we were giving the care and concern to vulnerable people out there, we were no longer to reach out to them in ways that we were before. Across the country, someone did a study to find that those communities that held on to slavery the longest back in the 1850s are those communities hardest hit today. So explain that one. I don't know, but that is a research finding that came out. And so COVID is definitely a player, a factor in someone being able to achieve the freedom that they want to achieve. And I know it's impacted Amy's work and the collaborators that she works with. So Amy, I don't know if you want to add.
Yes, I would love to add. Thank you. I'd like to add that during COVID, I'd like to point out we've all had to go virtual as we are today. And so youth that used to be able to would go to school and go to activities and see counselors and go to community centers. People would see them and they would be able to talk to other people if things were happening at home. That cut that off during COVID. You only see this, right? This screen, the teacher only sees this and doesn't get to see the whole body of the student. And it's hard to get how they're really feeling through a screen. So we know that social media has had such a negative effect in regards to the youth are online now for school, and then they're playing games and the predators are online. They're making friends with children through their games. So I wanted to throw that in about social media having such a huge impact on giving traffickers access to our kids more than they have in the past.
A really good point. We also have kind of a question comment, which I think is really important as well. It's really about the fact that human trafficking, it's not just a female issue, correct? And so maybe you can talk about the male to female, ratio or how it impacts really all genders. And
not only kids, but adults as well, whoever is vulnerable. So, there are some estimates that maybe 75% female, 25% male in the sex trafficking area. And then when we talk about labor trafficking, people that are forced or manipulated to work without being paid a legal wage or paid at all, then you see a lot more males, boys and men being exploited in that way. So it doesn't have a gender, and it doesn't have an age to it. You see children, although we seem to be more sympathetic toward children, but you see many vulnerable adults, not only in the U.S., but around the world, that are even drawn into the U.S. Because the promise of hope, the promise of the American dream. And so you see a lot of vulnerable people in all types of shapes and sizes.
A question from David Patch with the Blade is, can we provide examples in broad terms, of course, but perhaps with the level of detail of the story, Dr. Williamson, you gave with Peaches, of trafficking victims identified, rescued by TARTA personnel? At this time, I don't have an example, necessarily a TARTA example. I'm not sure if in prior work that Amy, Dr. Williamson, you've done with TARTA, if you have some examples.
Yeah, I do. Amy, do you do any recent?
Yes, go ahead though.
Oh, just a call from TARTA driver that went to TARTA personnel that then came to us, and we forwarded that information to our local FBI task force, which is here 40 hours a week, just to focus on investigations regarding trafficking. So I have seen that continuum happen and work very well. But go ahead, Amy.
Well, that's our hope, is that while we partner with TARTA with our Focus on Runaways project and our PATH project, what we're hoping is that as we train and retrain the drivers, I think you mentioned 178, Laura, is that correct? Drivers on a daily basis are out. We want them to be able to identify the red flags, or to be able to sense that someone is in trouble. Our hope is that once the boards are up in the buses, I don't know if they're called scanners, but once they're up and running, we'll be running the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So our hope is, if the driver senses that there's an issue or a concern, the number will be running, and everybody has their phone, so they can put it in their phone, National Human Trafficking Hotline, or the driver will be able to notice the situation that is happening. The driver can, in their mind, take notes, if you would. What does the trafficker look like? What did the young girl look like? Were there tattoos? What color hair did they have? Did they get into a car? Where was their stop? And then the driver can report that information either to us or to the National Human Trafficking Hotline themselves. So the goal is so drivers know what to look for, and then can help victims as they're entering the bus or at the transit centers, if you would.
And so the hotline number, by the way, is 888-373-888, and anybody can call at any time with any information. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to know the people you're talking about. Like Amy said, you can describe the clothing. You can describe where you saw them. You can describe the suspicious behavior that you see. And you never know if you are providing a piece of the puzzle that goes with other pieces of puzzles. So don't dismiss, oh, I only know this little information. Oh, I only have a uneasy feeling in my gut. That's okay. If you even make a mistake and it's not true, call the hotline and do it anonymously, because what happens is, as soon as you hang up, that operator is going to call our FBI task force and provide them the information. So whether you provide it, directly to a coalition or something like that, we'd actually ask you to call the hotline so that it does get routed in the right direction.
Great. Amy or Dr. Williamson, if you get a moment and could put that hotline in the chat, I think that'd be great. So we have another question from Fletcher Ward from Sojourners Truth. This is for Dr. Williamson. And can you cite some more information for the study about slavery areas having a higher problem during COVID?
Yes, it's a study done by David Corliss, which I'd be happy to connect you and him together because I'm probably doing a terrible job of describing his findings. But he found that those communities in the 1850s, right before when people were battling over freeing the slaves, that those communities today are the communities that are being disproportionately still affected by human trafficking, and more so during COVID. So there's some speculation on the cultural feel of those communities and what they think, and some connections between historic slavery and freedom and economically benefiting off the backs of other people, and modern day slavery where people benefit off the backs of other people. Now, that has been controversial in that some people don't like us connecting historic slavery to modern day slavery. They feel it's disrespectful to historic slavery. And so there's that conversation out there as well. But those findings by David Corliss connecting those two has been recent research. I think he completed it this year, actually, or in 2021. Then I could connect you, Fletcher, to him, and you can talk more.
So is Toledo a hub for human trafficking? I mean, obviously it's a major problem, but is this, at a higher degree here in Northwest Ohio?
Yeah, I don't. That has been something that's been said over and over and over again. And we are no different, really, than any other community. I mean, trafficking is in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, Chicago. The only difference in Toledo is that we got out in front early. We started talking about it. We will not keep our family secret. Every one of our children is valuable and important, and we will talk about it. And, what we want to be known for is not being disproportionately affected by human trafficking, or that human trafficking is a black eye or people should be afraid, because I promise you, human trafficking is in every community. It's just if you want to look for it. And when you look for it, you see it, you talk about it, you respond. So we should be proud as a community that we care about every single one of our children, and we don't care about our reputation as a community. We want to reach in and we want to help that child and change the trajectory of their lives and help them to make choices in life instead of live by consequences. I think that's what we need to be known for.
And if I could just chime in, that is one of the things we are known for now because of the work of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute, along with the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition. We have done years of prevention work, helping people to identify and to see red flags, to know where to report, to know what to do. We have many agencies. The coalition itself has about 65 members and 34 agencies involved. So what Toledo has become really good at is calling and reporting what we see. So if you see a number that says, Toledo, look, we're in this number or that number for cases, those are not cases. Those are calls that we have made to help adults and youth to get out of trafficking. So thank you for bringing that up, Laura, because we're always out trying to dispel the myth that we are a hub. We are not a hub. We have human trafficking in all 88 counties in Ohio, I'm sorry to say.
Congresswoman Captor, would you like to?
Yes, I have a question. I'm very concerned as an American about the enormous impact that many of the websites are having on our youth. We have watched what has occurred with TikTok and with other sites that I've never even heard of. I have attended funerals in this community of young people who took their own lives because of what they saw on their iPhone or their phone. I'd like to know how this issue of human trafficking is impacted by social websites that most adults don't even know exist. and are having an enormous influence on the psychology and the state of mind of our young people. Have you or have any of your national connections probed this issue at all?
Yeah, we did a report at the Institute on this, and talked to gave the report to the state and tried to talk to the community about vulnerability. And, you know, young people are so vulnerable, but particularly online. And those vulnerabilities that attract a trafficker to a young person can be displayed in person just as well as they can online. And you can recruit 3 or 5 young people while you're online a lot easier than you can do it in person. And so young people will show you their needs. And that's what vulnerability is. It's just your very basic need for love and belonging and food, clothing, shelter, and safety, and all the things that we all have basic needs. But when you express those and you don't understand that there's risk, then you'll say things online, and whether it's whatever social media it is, because we can't keep up with all the things that are popping up, we have to know that when that young person expresses that vulnerability, I want to be loved. They don't say, I want to be loved. They say, here's my selfie. You know, I'm looking for a man. I wish my parents would treat me like it. I got to get out of here. I can't stand. They say it like that, but the trafficker hears, I have a need to be loved. I have a need to be treated as an adult. And then I'm going to approach you and I'm going to fill that need. That is the trafficking game, to understand your vulnerability and then to step forward and fill it. And that's what happens. And so if I can encourage someone to go offline on your Instagram and develop a Finstagram, a fake Instagram, so that we can really talk, that is what's happening. And sometimes you don't even meet your trafficker. I mean, you can be convinced to send photos, to engage in online, where men can pay, and never even meet the trafficker these days. So being very vulnerable online is a risk factor, just like you are vulnerable in person. And so you will never be able to keep up with these things. So what you have to do is really educate your kids about risk. You have to be a hybrid parent. You can't be old school parent. I lay down the law and you follow it, because you know what? They're not. They're behind your back doing what they want. You can't be your child's friend either. You have to be both. You have to be a guide. Means you have to be able to parent and guide them, but you have to be able to be a friend enough so that they come to you when they're facing something and that you can give them the guidance that they need. So you have to build that relationship.
I just want to add, if I could, that during Human Trafficking 101 presentations that we do, Congresswoman, we have a whole section on social media and what parents can be looking for. Some of the quick ones are, if you're, like right now, I'm on my laptop, and if my mom would come in the room and I slam it shut, that's an issue. Why can't I see what website you're on? On my grandkids' phone, I know they're not hearing this, so I can tell on them, but their phones have all kinds of apps. I click on them to make sure they're exactly what they say they are, because it's easy to have an app on your phone that looks like it's a game, but really it's a connection to some social media site where you're talking to people who you think are your friends. So we go through steps in our current presentations to make sure that parents are aware of what to look for, and then to let youth know that just because I say that I'm in 6th grade and I live in Toledo, Ohio, if I don't know you, I should I be friends with you really? Because that's a stranger. So we do some, depending on the level of the age of the child, of course, and then with the parents, we talk about what they can do, because social media is such a huge part of our lives now, even more so with the pandemic.
Do you bring these sites? Do you bring these sites to the attention of the FBI?
They brought that attention to us. Yes, ma'am.
And if I could just add quickly, there's a couple initiatives that Senator Fetter is working on to address this issue. She has draft language for an online grooming bill. Grooming is much of what Dr. Williamson described here. It's not usually the stranger danger that, is portrayed in the media a lot of times or in movies like Taken. It usually either happens, they befriend them online or pretend to get in a relationship with the person. They think that they care. And then they entice and lure them sometimes across state lines, sometimes to new communities. Again, the kids get labeled maybe a runaway when really they were coerced and frauded into sex work. So the Attorney General is currently reviewing that language to make sure that it can actually work for law enforcement and be used. But that's something that should be coming down the pipeline soon. Another initiative that she has been working on and comparing what other states are doing is putting K through 12 age appropriate education on things that were just spoken about, healthy relationships, what they look like, looking to model kind of what Florida is doing, because they've done a very good job of leading the way in that area of education and awareness. And she has also already introduced the Foster Youth Bill of Rights for those in our foster care system so that they know what their rights are and know when they might be being violated. And then also creating a youth ombudsman office where complaints can be investigated, even if that investigation involves the department and being an autonomous entity, so that those things can be investigated at every level. So as I mentioned, she has an awareness day coming up where you can learn a lot more about this and other bills. And then hopefully, we'll have numbers by then. But the law enforcement community in Ohio is also aware, and Senator Fetter is working with them to figure out what will work best. It was an officer that came and spoke with her, and they collaborated on creating this pre-grooming bill. So just wanted to let you all know that Ohio will be taking on these issues.
Thank you. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. Any final thoughts from any of our speakers?
I'd like to make sure that before we get off this call, that we understand that when we talk about sex trafficking, we're largely talking about pimps. And if you understand pimping a little bit, you understand sex trafficking, because there's a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications. So trafficking in our communities is less about kidnapping and snatching people into mysterious vans like you might see on Facebook all the time, and all these plots. And it's more about manipulating young people or vulnerable adults into this situation. It's less about kidnapping, because you bring a lot of heat and a lot of risk if you kidnap somebody. And what you want to do is you want to keep a low profile. So manipulating and then trauma bonding, sort of chaining that person's mind and their heart. And it's less about chaining their wrists and their ankles. When you see these things on CNN or in movies, it's because it's extraordinary. But the average normal type of trafficking that occurs most often in Ohio is manipulation, befriending, and then getting someone trapped into a situation where they won't tell you what's happening. They are not trying to escape because they have great fear, but they also may be trauma bonded and think they love this potential person. So when you see that, that is what trafficking is. They aren't necessarily complying. They're fearful and they're traumatized, and that's what's happening. So don't so much look for snatching and grabbing, although that will happen on rare occasion. But we want you to look for those vulnerable people that are connected through trauma to someone who is taking their money or making them work or trade sex in exchange for drugs or for money or other items. Amy, do you want to add anything?
Celia, I, of course, agree with everything you said. The only thing I'd like to mention is that when we say human trafficking, what we often hear is Other people think that you need to be moved to be trafficked. You need to go somewhere. You need to be taken somewhere. You can be trafficked from your own home by family members for various reasons. But the cases we've seen in Northwest Ohio have had to do with parents trafficking their kids because the parent couldn't afford the drugs they wanted. So they allowed the trafficker to have sex with their child so they could get the drugs that they wanted. So let's not forget that trafficking doesn't mean that I'm leaving or going somewhere. I can be trafficked right from my own home.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our speakers for joining us today. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing. It's really making a difference. And I think this was also such an important opportunity that we really embraced the purpose of this month, of Human Trafficking Awareness Month, by raising awareness, giving more tips and understanding of how to identify this serious issue in our community, from what is occurring online and what is occurring potentially right in front of us. So I know that there's been a lot of information put in the chat feature, from the hotline number to email addresses, if media or others would like to follow up directly with any of our speakers. Again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you again to our speakers, and we wish you a very good day going forward.